Today on the Ave Podcast, I'm joined by producer and reporter from National Public Radio, Andrew Mambo, as we discuss the situation with Naomi Osaka regarding her pulling out of two very prestigious Grand Slam tournaments due to her issues dealing with the media and protecting her mental health. It's an unprecedented situation. So we talk about the strength of Naomi finding her voice, her stance, and her power, especially as a black woman. How this affects Wimbledon, the French Open, the TV networks, how this may trickle into possible repeat situations with other athletes in the sport, and more regarding this as well. South Sharav is available wherever you listen to podcasts. Hit the like button, the favorite button. Don't be bashful. Rate, review, and subscribe or follow. Leave comments as well. I don't care if you love it or you hate it. Leave all the comments you like. Click on every one of those 5 stars, especially if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts. And check out my catalog of podcast shows once again on SouthShoreAve.com. One more time for emphasis. That's SouthShoreAve.com. It's the Ave Podcast with Cal C on South Shore Ave Radio. Let's do it.
Welcome to the Ave Podcast with Cal C on South Shore Ave Radio.
Welcome to the Ave Podcast. My guest today is the producer and reporter from NPR, National Public Radio. Please welcome Andrew Mambo to the show. How you doing today, sir?
What's going on, man? This is the friendliest introduction you've ever given me. Every time I come on here, what's happening?
I know. I'm actually. It doesn't even feel right that I did that. I almost want to start it over. Just keep up with the energy. It don't even feel good. It don't even feel good.
Because it's just the two of us now. You're not trying to like.
Yeah, I don't have an audience to go to bring the beef to your door. Now it's just behind the curtain. All right, we're friends. We're friends. All right, so it's fine.
Yeah, sometimes you freaking show me some respect on the show.
and it was jokes though too, because we're both in the same fantasy league that we cherish, and it's coming up soon. So. I figure, maybe I'll deal with the niceness right now, and you come on later this summer, you're probably really not going to get that same energy. You know how it goes. You know how it goes. It's usually started by you all the time. It's always started by you. Yeah, it's always started by you all that time. That hate and that beef.
I bring nothing but happiness and joy to that league. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, everybody but me for some reason. I don't know why. I'm the victim. I have to defend myself every time. You know how it is. You know how it is. But
I don't even need to say anything because everybody knows you're full of shit. Like.
Yeah. I probably put a lot on it there. That's fine. I could deal with that. That's fine.
I'm just going to edit that out. Just going to edit that part out.
No, I'll leave it in. It's fine. I wanted to have you on the show because I wanted to get into the discussion real quick about Naomi Osaka and her decisions to pull out of the last 2 Grand Slam tournaments, the French Open and now Wimbledon, due to not wanting to deal with the media for her mental health, which has caused a ton of controversy within the media. But mainly part of the job of being a professional athlete is dealing with the media, so people are ripping on her for not committing to these responsibilities. But I think it's forcing an interesting situation, and I think something's happening here, and it's representing another. To me, it looks like it's representing another attack at the traditions of media and regarding these sporting events, also protecting mental health and understanding your value. But for you watching the situation now, the fact that she's pulled out of her 2nd Grand Slam. What are your thoughts when you look at this?
I think it's been fascinating because, this is all part of this long-running change in terms of, the media's relationship with athletes, the powers that have been moving slightly. And when I say this, there's a lot of talk and people talk about, athletes having all the power and athletes having, suddenly taking a lot of power. I think what's kind of left out of that conversation sometimes is that there are certain athletes that have a lot more power than they used to have, and certain athletes that exercise that power. And, certainly if, Osaka was the 150th ranked player and she made this stand, it wouldn't make the news. People wouldn't, she wouldn't have the support. It would be damaging. It would, you know what I mean? it's a privilege to be in that position, to be able to make that statement and still have endorsements to back you up financially and know that somebody's getting hurt. I mean, I don't know the numbers. I'd be curious to know the numbers, but like, I imagine that on some level, I'd be curious how much tennis suffers. How much did Roland Garros, the French Open, suffer for not having her there, potentially having her in the final in terms of ratings and whatnot? And the same with Wimbledon. I mean, it hurts for them not to have her there, and there's no way around that. And so I'm just saying, like, I think that I like and appreciate the idea and concept that athletes are gaining power, you know, through their ability to speak directly with their audience. But we should keep in mind that it is only certain athletes that do have that privilege to be able to do that and do it in a way that isn't necessarily detrimental to their playing career.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Like, I like the fact that she's doing this. To me, you know, to lend to kind of what you're saying, it's which is, you're absolutely correct in that sense, where it's not the role players like in team sports. It's not the sixth man coming off the bench that can do this. And as you said, if she's a 150th ranked player, not only does Roland Garros don't care, they're probably like, well, we don't want you to speak anyway. What are you going to say? Who cares? You know, like they probably pull the mics away from her. You know, like you want to talk after the game after you won? Beat it. You know, like there would be a certain level of almost like a dismissal if she was ranked way lower. But like, I like that she's actually, let me rephrase that. I love the fact that this is happening and what she's doing. But part of the reason why I love it is because I think, like, number one, to me, and you know, in this space now where, you know, recognizing mental health and all this stuff is growing, the fact that she has a chance to kind of protect it right now, you know, I think it's actually very interesting to me, because, you know, we've been living in this post-COVID world, this pandemic world right now, and you're seeing a lot of things changing within people, right? And you understand the stresses of all the lockdowns. There's so many different stressors that are popping up in your daily lives right now that you probably wouldn't even have happened, you know, in 2019, right? Like these things would have happened. So mental health is a real thing. Like the suicide rates, the mental health aspect has grown exponentially during this period, right? And I mean, it's for all walks of life. This isn't just a certain class of people. The whole world is kind of dealing with that. And, you know, and you're seeing it's taking its toll on a lot of people, right? So, and I'm not saying this is what's happening with her, but mental health is really being recognized, I think it's really being recognized more in this space, at least to me, because you're just watching. I've seen people, like, not to say you're talking people off the ledge, but like, I've had these conversations with different friends and stuff where you just it's almost like you're checking in to see how they're doing. You know what I mean? And then sometimes you hear a story and you're like, oh shit. You know, like, even for me, like, I know we haven't had a chance to talk in a bit, but I remember a few months ago I had a friend of mine where, you know, we were like, one of the things we kept saying was, you know, like, yo, we got to meet up, you know, because all this stuff is happening. You don't know what's going to happen next in the future. So, you know, we got to own these moments to go at least, you know, hang out, have a beer, or go watch a game or whatever it is. And it was one of my good friends from university, probably one of my best friends from university. And about 2 weeks ago, man, he had a heart attack and he died, right? So for me, it was like, you look at that and like, yes, I mean, thank you. But like, that's like, you look at something like that where it's like, you know, you're not checking in on people and stuff. And I'm not, you know, like, you just don't know when that next moment, like, you just don't know what's going to happen in the future. Right. So, and I'm like, and even for me, like, I'll tell you, like, honestly, for me, like, mental health wise, Mambo, like, I struggled for about, like, this is probably the first week where I've been like back to myself and normal. I struggled for about a week and a half, you know, and I think everything just came at once. So I respect the fact that, like, you know what I mean? Like, this is kind of happening in that aspect for her, because it's such an important issue. And the fact that she has a platform to protect it is huge. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off before, but go on.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think it is good, and it is important, right, that people like her, when they're having mental health issues, that they speak up about it, because it normalizes it, right? For a long time, people, you know, it just hasn't been normalized in the way it's being normalized now more and more every day, which I think is obviously a good thing. Look at Michael Phelps, who's been really open about it, and so much so that he's not, like a spokesman for, is it Talkspace that he but one of the like online counseling services
right.
that he speaks up about, and he's really like been a strong proponent of it. And it's good to hear Naomi Osaka saying the same thing, right? Because the more people see that, you normalize the idea that somebody can prioritize their mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, no matter what, there's still can be a privilege to be able to do that, right? Take time off of work, all those kind of things. But if you have that space, it's good that people talk about it. And even if you don't have the space to be able to do that and take that, the fact that like if you normalize the conversation, if you normalize the idea that like we don't all have to say like, well, okay, I'm good, you know what I mean,
mm-hmm.
all the time, all that leads to positive change for sure.
Yeah, and you look at entertainers, you look at athletes, and you think because they have a certain sense of privilege because of the money they make, like the reach of hitting fame and those type of different things is within arm's length. You know what I mean? It's not a pipe
mm-hmm.
dream for
mm-hmm.
people, and a lot of people envy that. But there's also, as you know, there's also a lot of pressures that come with that too, right? And
yeah,
it makes me think of like when she just started winning, right? Like when she just started winning her Grand Slam, like I think it was the U.S. Open was her first Grand Slam. I think she won, right? And she beat Serena. You watch this girl, this young lady step to the mic. Remember how timid she used to be? You remember how nervous she used to be to even talk? Like she was so unbelievably shy. It's like it just didn't match like what you just saw on the tennis court, And then I remember that whole situation where people were booing because they wanted Serena to win because I think she would have got the record, and she started crying right there. You know what I mean? And Serena had to come and basically comfort her. This is her moment. You know what I mean? So you're seeing all that. So it's like, okay, so you understand from that perspective, this is not an extroverted person. You know what I mean? So the fact that this is happening, I'm not saying I'm shocked or surprised, or I'm not surprised, but like, when you think about those, like how she started off, I mean, all of a sudden now you're getting all this fame and, all this fortune, and, because I think right now she's the highest endorsing female athlete in the world right now, right? I think she even passed Serena this year on the last 12 months. So yeah, like that is a huge, from where you were before to where you are now. That's a huge leap. You know what I mean? And not everybody can deal with that. Like it is a lot of pressure. You know what I mean? Like I don't think people respect it, and they just see the money, but they don't see everything that's like basically holding on behind that money, right?
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, I think you're absolutely right. She's always been quite open about how shy she is and whatnot, and has been evident. I think it's interesting that it's interesting the way that the four majors kind of made a concerted effort to collectively say to her, this is the rules, you need to follow the rules or else. And that even in the face of that she, was like, fuck this, I don't need this, was a pretty powerful thing for her to do. I mean, she's only, 23 years old? I mean, she's still so early on in her career. And then for her to really make a very clear statement by saying no to Wimbledon, but yes to the Olympics, and expressing how, happy she is to be able to do the Olympics, which is her essentially saying that the treatment that she's going to get at the Olympics is going to be different than what she experiences at each of these tournaments. And that is the thing that, and I don't know how much that differs, to be honest, or how much athletes need to be made available according to, different Olympic committees. Yeah. But I imagine, Japan is going to make some accommodations for her in a way that the majors were not willing to do. And it's quite a statement. I mean, there's no way that they're not losing money by not having her there, because it's a storyline. Like she is every time. I mean, I'm into tennis to see Naomi Osaka. Mm-hmm. When Naomi Osaka was out of I was following the French, Open. When Naomi Osaka was at Serena Williams, I was out. Like, And a part of it is like,
same here.
And it's not even to say that like those players, like there's a value to the fact of like, I'll say this just the other day, like I don't follow tennis that hard, but I will definitely follow specific players. And so I was following Serena Williams, and Serena Williams led me to Naomi Osaka, right?
Right.
And also, leading me to Coco Gauff and, different tennis players, because you get into a storyline of them. And if I'm tuning out because Serena's not there and Naomi's not there, and Naomi, for all, like, she's number 2 ranked in the world right now, she very well might have made it all the way to the final. Like, the fact that I'm not following her throughout, watching the people she plays against and noticing somebody and potentially, making a connection with another player, that's like a loss for me, for other people. I mean, there's a reason they pump storylines, when they're doing these broadcasts.
Yeah.
They want you to know these personal aspects of people's lives because they want you to emotionally attach to somebody.
Yeah.
They want you to, like, have a connection. They want you to like somebody. They want, like, all of those elements. I understand why they want Naomi Osaka to speak. They want people to like her. They want people to, like, connect with her and all of those things, because then people like you, they're going to, like, come and watch you play. There's very few players, like, who's somebody that, people are like, I hate this person, and I come and watch them. I mean, maybe Tiger Woods, but, like, who is you often watch because you like somebody.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely got to be hurting financially. It's probably minimal at this point, but, like, it's a bad look. And depending on what she does after Wimbledon, after the Olympics, be really curious to see what the U.S. Open does.
Yeah, it's interesting because I love tennis. Like I'm one of my bucket list things in life, honestly, and this might sound funny to say, is I always wanted to go to the U.S. Open. That is something like I'm going to knock off on my list one day, to go sit back and watch it, and like an actual tournament, stay there for at least a week and just be there live and watching that. Like I'm not like a tennis fan to that degree where I know every single player, but I love the Grand Slams and I love the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
When it comes to like the French Open, and even Wimbledon, like once she was gone, I was the same thing. I was out. I had no interest to the point where I remember one of our friends texted like Nadal won, or I think Nadal, not Nadal, I think Djokovic won the French Open, and I'm like, shit, the tournament was on. Like like it was to that degree, I was that far gone. You know what I mean? Where it's like I didn't even know the thing was playing. I didn't even know the tournament started, much less finished. But a lot of that was because of Osaka. Like I'll be honest, like a lot of it was because of that. Like I don't think Serena played either. That was a thing where I was just like, oh yeah, I'm not interested. Like I immediately lost interest in it. But it has to hurt them. Like, and that's, to me, this is where it gets interesting, because you're the Grand Slam. Like you're one of those Grand Slam tournaments. You come with a certain level of prestige and tradition. It's very important to be in these tournaments, because at the end of the day, when they talk about winning championships and this sport winning majors, like, if you only have a few majors, you're not going to be considered AKA one of the best in the world, or of all time, that kind of thing. When you're ripping off a certain count, like a Serena, where she had like 24 or 25 or whatever it is, it's like now you start playing with like those numbers and stuff. When you start racking up those numbers to that degree, now it's like, okay, you're getting this respect as the all-time tennis player, or the best tennis player of all time. But like even without that, it has to start from somewhere. So at this stage now, where she's at, she could be raking it in because she's so young and she's so gifted already. Like she could be just doing like grants, like what do they call it? Like the when you win all 4 of them in a row. What is it called again? The I can't remember.
I want to call it a Serena Slam. No,
I want to say it, but I know it's not the Serena Slam. But I can't remember what you call it.
The Serena Slam is when you hold all 4 titles, but not all in the same year.
Yeah, exactly. So I forget what you call it, where you hold them all in the same year. I can't believe I can't remember this right now. This is terrible. But no, but I'm just saying the fact that, like, she could be racking up these majors right now and she's not getting them. You could understand where some people are like, yo, this is like, you're kind of missing a moment here where you can be collecting these. It's harder to collect those championships when you're older. You know what I mean? Like, this is the time. You're 23 years old. You're number one. This is the time to rack this all up. But at the same time, even though you're this prestigious tournament, you can't afford to keep having the best player in the world not be at your tournament either. You know what I mean? It almost invalidates the tournament.
Yeah.
You know, so it has to hurt. It has to hurt. Like, to me, yeah. No, it definitely. It's like, and just financially and reputational. But yeah, it is a delicate balance because, like I said, it's like if they are just, I think, right, if players and athletes are just disembodied, you know, whatever, athletes who just do a thing, almost robotic. They go in, they play a thing, they leave. You never hear them speak. You never get a sense of who they are or anything. It's hard to make a fan base connect with that. Yeah.
Like, there is an importance, there is a value. Now, are there times when maybe, you know, media outlets really push the boundary and maybe get more or push more than they need to, potentially? But at the end of the day, you can't say that the sport can grow or the sport can, you know, maintain if they don't have access, if the stories of the athletes is not actually getting out and being shared. It's an essential element of the game. Now, granted, I think there needs to be some sort of balance, right? Because somebody should not be doing that media obligation at the expense of their mental health. That seems like that doesn't seem like a question. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
But yeah, there needs to be some sort of balance. And I think it's good. She's bringing it up. It's, you know, she's stepping away. There's a lot of conversations about it. Certainly behind the scenes, all the slams are talking about it and trying to figure something out. Because it's, you know, from their perspective, I think they're just worried about, like, I think theoretically, do they care if Naomi doesn't talk as much as they would like her to? Probably they don't care. But what they see is always, so many, as it is always with these things, especially like organizations, they don't look at the current situation. They're just thinking about the potential future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this person is going to say no for this reason. Like, it's always all about, the concern is always about precedent.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, they just need to figure it out. And they're going to. They're going to have to. They need Naomi.
Yeah.
She's so, like, she's at the top of the game. I mean, even she's not number one ranked right now. She's number 2 in the world. And certainly from a notoriety standpoint, she's number 1 without question. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing.
Can you name a number 1 ranked?
No. No.
Well, there you go. Ashley Barty.
But I think it's but I think it's interesting because, you know, you speak to a point where it's like you can't open up Pandora's box in terms of everybody being able to use this. If more and more of the biggest names start to use this as a potential loophole, it hurts the media coverage of it. It hurts the TV deals that these majors have with the TV networks, like the tennis organizations have with the TV networks. You know, so at the end of the day, it's like the money gets affected, right? So I think that's the part of it too. So, like, it's
oh yeah,
go ahead.
So it's like, if I'm a TV executive and I'm, you know, buying time, I pay money with the expectation that Naomi Osaka will speak a certain number of times. Now, if you suddenly are like, yeah, she's not going to actually talk that many times, we need to renegotiate our deal, because that's airtime. People, if there's no interview with her afterwards, people are turning off the TV. People are switching somewhere else. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, people will stick around on the broadcast to watch the post-game interview with Naomi Osaka, or people will watch a pre-interview, you know, whatever it is. Yeah. People will watch that. And so if you don't have that, I mean, what the fuck? It's like, I mean, I totally get how the whole thing breaks down financially. It's a whole mess. But they need to figure it out, because it's a thing that she's bringing up now, and it's most certainly going to be a thing going forward. She's not the only one. She's not the first one to have mental health issues when you're playing at this high level of a sport.
Absolutely not.
It's not possible.
No, absolutely not.
It's not possible. And not, you know, it's like you go through hard patches, you know, you get better. Like, she is not the first. She is not going to be the last. So they need to figure it out. Because in this day and age where she can, you know, directly speak to an audience and an audience that will affirm whatever the fuck she wants to do, the power isn't necessarily where it used to lie. I mean, she came out on social media today with a whole, like, was it yesterday with the Vogue cover? Yeah, because she's got a direct platform to speak to everybody on her terms.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a terrifying thing. I would say, like, at a lot of these spaces, and this is, ESPN and places like that where a lot of athletes, access starts to be like, you have to use their production company, or you have to go through their production company in order to secure an interview.
Yeah, you're not just be walking into a locker room and just having access to them right there in the hallway, or in front of their cubicle in their locker room, I should say. But yeah,
no, because somebody like LeBron James knows the value of his voice. Yeah. I mean, he knows that, like, that's literally him doing an interview for you is literally him just giving you money. So, he smartly for himself, like, angles to make sure that, oh, well, you'll use, my crew to do this or whatnot. And I'm not speaking to any deals that I know are specific. I'm just saying, like, in a generic sense, a general sense, like, there are so many deals made now, and all these athletes, Kevin Durant, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, they all have production companies, Steph Curry,
Westbrook.
And they're able to, like, control the way that their story gets told and shared, which is, like, great for them. But I think, obviously, it's not great for the industry, and it's not good for the audience in the end, to be honest. Because I don't know how you are, but I know that if I'm in charge of telling my story,
it's gonna be
a little more glowing.
Yep, it's gonna be glossy as hell.
Be a little more glowing than not going to be as critical. Or there's the false critical that gets inserted, right? Where you're like, there's the obvious critique against somebody, and so they nod to it, but they don't really analyze it. They don't really dig into what the way that an independent journalist would do. So yeah, and I realize we're getting off topic, but that is something that does, like, kind of, it's a concerning trend, I think, and I don't think that the consumer sees it necessarily as obvious. It's, like, much more obvious behind the scenes of, like, when you see the way deals get made and whatnot, that, like, or you see, like, the production companies. It's like, oh, I mean, you pay attention to these things and watch, but if somebody's just like, oh, some company named whatever X did a documentary about my favorite football player. Oh, that's cool. Like, I haven't heard of that company before. And, if you then later on you find out, like, oh, wait, that football player owned that company? Like, was that documentary actually legit? Like, were they really questioning things?
It's interesting you say that because I know one of the things in the Michael Jordan documentary, for example, that people didn't like is the fact that, I mean, Michael Jordan basically owns he doesn't have a production company, but he owns all the rights to his stuff. Like, you don't go through the league for his stuff. You go through him, right? If you want to talk to Michael Jordan, right? As you know. So, and I know ESPN was a big part of that, but I know some people had an issue with it because you're not totally getting the other story. Like, there's different athletes that didn't get recognized that was teammates of his for a while, like a Craig Hodges, for example. That wasn't getting recognized in it, but it's because it's same thing to what you're saying is, like, he controlled that narrative, right? So
him in the
league, right? So, like, I mean, to the point where, like, a Scottie Pippen gets pissed off now because he's not getting that same. He doesn't like how his story is being narrated, right? And I saw him in an interview this week where he was talking about, like, I'm controlling my narrative from now on, and it's like, okay, so you see where this is kind of going, but, like, to me, it kind of represents what you're also seeing with social media as well, right? Like, just the fact that you don't need the media the same way to connect with fans and people, to get your point across. And don't get me wrong, I don't think the media is going anywhere, right? They're too powerful to disappear. But at the same time, I think it's just going to be continued to use differently, especially in the era where, as you're talking about, like, stars are building their own platforms where you kind of have to respect their point of view. Because, like I said, with whatchamacallit, like, in terms of Naomi with her mental health, like, I think right now, whether it was by design or by I think this might have even been by accident. I think she also recognizes now the full value of her voice and her power. You know, because like I said, not making herself available for tournaments and stuff, or on her terms, the fact that she's going to represent Japan in the Olympics, like that is like you're giving more of a platform to the Olympics. With the Olympics, with everything that's happening, you know, the Olympics got canceled last year. You're going into an odd number year for the Olympics. It's not getting the amount of coverage or like leading up to it as it probably would have before. Now you have one of the biggest stars representing the host country, you know, in a tournament that she's probably going to win. That storyline alone, and the fact that she missed the last two Grand Slams going into the Olympics now, where now she might actually say something. Oh my God! Like now this is major. This is huge now. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like if you want your Naomi Osaka coverage, you're watching the Olympics. You're going to watch what she has to say now. You know, you're paying attention to that. It's a major move. And honestly, I love it.
Almost more so because you've been starved of her, right? You've been starved of Naomi Osaka, so now you're like salivating for hearing something from her, watching her play.
Yeah.
It's going to be NBC sitting back going like, it's not bad. Can help our Olympic ratings?
No, not at all. And it's funny because I was telling a friend before this, we were just talking about.
Well, I think NBC has the tournaments too. So,
what's that?
I think NBC also has some of the tournaments. I think they're broadcasting the tournament. So.
Yeah, they have the French. They have the French. So they're like, well, you know, they got messed up, but at least they can maybe make it up on the back end here. But
exactly.
I was telling a friend about this just before we started this podcast, where I was talking about what we're going to talk about tonight, and it's interesting because, when you watch where she is now compared to where she was when she jumped on the scene, it's like a complete 180. In the past few months, in the past year, I would say her voice has grown exponentially, especially pertaining to like all the anti-black racism, George Floyd, all the stuff in terms of her changing her mask at the U.S. Open, to match all the names of the unarmed black people that got murdered. To see her become this person that defends her voice in this manner, honestly, Mambo, I think it's awesome. I didn't think this was going to happen this quickly, but the fact that she's found her voice and she's embracing these things, she's in full bloom right now.
No, it's amazing to see. She's 23 years old. I mean, to have somebody at 23 years old have that much self-awareness and know the extent of the power that they could exercise in the space, and also just to know what they need, and ask for what they need, and then when being denied what they need, be like, fuck it, I'm gonna do what I need to do for myself. Like that's all of that is amazing for somebody who's 23 years old. So it wasn't me at 23.
No, we were partying at Soca Jams at 23.
It was a very different focus.
Yeah,
very focused. So. Yeah.
But I think it represents a strength in a real way that I, honestly, even 2 years ago, I didn't see this coming. So it's actually really impressive to see. And honestly, finally, I'll say, Mambo, that I love that it's a black woman that's making this wave. Shit, like let me tell it, man. Like I think, I think for her to be the one that waves this wand of responsibility, I think is an incredible thing. I mean, and especially from who it's coming from, given where we are in terms of anti-black racism and everything else has been happening. I mean, for many years, but especially in the last year and change or what have you. I keep saying, man, now was the time to flex your muscle. You know what I mean? In terms of making people uncomfortable when it comes to these subjects or these power, like this dynamic shifts and stuff like this. This is the time to flex your muscle. Like right now is the time. So, but I love it.
Man, another example of black women doing the hard work, hard labor to uplift for the greater good. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, I absolutely. Like I love that. Like I really love that, and I love that. Like younger girls can come and see this now too. They can come see that representation too. Like it's funny. There's a point that I guess I'll finish with this, but there's a point that my friend brought up that where he was talking about like as a father, he doesn't want to see her pulling out of too many tournaments at the same time because you also want to be able to show that you can kind of like fight through those. Like you're always gonna. It's not gonna be easier for her. You know what I mean in terms of dealing with the media, dealing with that kind of stuff. You don't want to see her not reach her full potential just because she's missing tournaments, and it might hurt her in the long run, that kind of thing. So I think like my friend was more concerned, like he said, as a father, he's more concerned of like, if that was his daughter, like he would be like, yo, don't try to miss too much of these only because like I want people to show how strong you are too. I'm not saying there's not strength in this, but just going forward, you don't want to miss like the next 2 years of tournaments. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think that might hurt in the long run too. So I'm like, I understand it from that perspective too.
I see that, but like I think I bet you she's got a plan, a strategy.
Mm-hmm.
She knows what she's doing. I mean, the fact that she came out and made a point of being like, I'm not going to Wimbledon and I'm going to the Olympics. Can't wait for the Olympics. So excited to represent my hometown. Like she's being very purposeful. Like she knows what she's doing.
Yeah,
she knows exactly what she knows.
Yeah,
I think you would have no idea what kind of conversations are happening in the background, right? There's all kinds of conversations she's having with the majors. They're talking. They're trying to figure out. They want her back in the tournament. She wants to be back there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
She wants to play. She wants to be in front of the people.
Yeah.
They'll figure it out. She doesn't want to be out, I'm sure, because to her mental health, she was saying it wasn't the playing that was getting her. Maybe to some extent it was, but it was the if you're a deadly shy person and you have to deal with the media, I can see how that anxiety like gets ramped up, especially at tournament time and whatnot.
Of course, of course.
But like,
especially when you're, especially like I said, when you go from, not to say she got it out the mud, but like when you go to reach this level of success this fast, it could trip you up.
For sure.
We've seen.
She's got great focus, man. Yeah. She knows what she's doing. I'm not worried. I'm not worried at all. I believe that she's like, she'll be all right and she'll be back. And she's young, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's really young. She's only 23. I mean, she's one of the younger, when you look at like the top 20, 30, 50, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, you're talking about a lot. Most of them are in their late 20s, early 30s, mid to late 20s, early 30s. So she's still on the early side of her career. She's already where she's at. I mean, she's gonna be all right. She's gonna be all right.
I agree with you.
You know what I mean? I'm not that worried. I think that like she's making a really strong statement, and whatever hit she's taking for it, someday maybe in the end of her career when she is, one tournament away from beating Serena Williams' record or whoever's record at that point, and people will point back to this. But I think what she's doing is for a larger cause. I am certain that there are other players who have spoken about this and like feel the same way and don't feel that they have the agency to do what she's doing. And so she's stepping up and she's doing what she feels is needed. And she's forcing a conversation that probably people have wanted to have for a while.
No, 100%.
You know what I mean?
100%.
So,
and I think, I guess to what you're saying too is, at the end of the day, as you said, 20-something years, not 20-something years, but like 10 years from now, when she's like, even if she doesn't, beat Serena's record or, get to that top record, this is going to be the feather in her cap, right? Like the fact that like if 10 years from now, the whole structure of this changes and, these majors deal with the players better in terms of, recognizing when they want to speak to the media, mental health, all that stuff. When they figure out something to tie this all together, this is going to be the feather in her cap, right? So like if she ends up with 18 majors, nobody's going to be like, you didn't get to 24. They're going to be like, well, yeah, she missed a couple of years, where she could have maybe had 2021, but it was because of this, and then we don't know, we don't know, Mambo. Like what happens when she finally gets on that platform in Tokyo? Like, what if she does or says something, that could be heavy, you know what I mean, during that period in time? Like, we saw what she did with the U.S. Open. The potential is there. What if she does something else on the Olympic stage? Words. Yeah, what if she does something on the Olympic stage that shit, like, we might be talking about 50 years from now?
Yeah.
The potential is there.
She's going to have words. She's gonna have something to say.
Yeah, no, like I said, I love the strength and how this is forming out, because like I said, I've been saying this for years. The models and the constructs of of our regular pillars of foundation is changing, is breaking. We're seeing it in a lot of different industries and stuff every day, you know, to a certain extent. So it's like, it's another salvo. It's another rock thrown at Goliath's head. You know what I mean? To take it down. So
yeah,
you gotta love and respect it. You know, you gotta love and respect it. All right, brother.
She's doing the work.
Yeah. All right, well, brother. Well, listen, man. Thank you for hopping on this podcast.
Yeah, hold on. Oh, how are we gonna like? We just jumped right into this, but we have not talked about the Montreal Canadiens right now. Like,
oh wow,
it's about to go down. Can we just? We don't need to like analyze it and break it down.
No, and I'm not going to.
Yo, how excited are you? Even though you are a Torontonian / Montrealer, I don't really know where your allegiance lies in terms of Habs and Leafs. Do you wear both jerseys? I don't know.
Stop the presses. Hold on a second. Oh,
Toronto runs deep in your blood, man. Toronto runs deep in your blood.
That was a masterful slice off my leg. What you just did there. That was masterful. That was like a ninja. That was like a ninja move. What you just did there.
Whoa! Wow. I didn't say anything. I'm just asking questions.
You put Toronto in front of Montreal. Holy smokes! I almost missed that. That was masterful. I almost got it. You know what? Golf clap. That was masterful. I like how you did that.
What can I say? Hey, I'm just, people want to know where you stand.
It was low down. It was low down and very dirty, but I'll still give you a golf clap.
You're like your excitement levels in the chat group. So like, I don't want to say muted, but like,
you know what it is.
It's not fully apparent. And even when you talk about like if they win, you're going to go to Montreal. It's kind of like I feel like you were talking more about getting shoes from the store that like you're trying to get another than like about really going to celebrate the people.
So disclaimer: I don't condone violence or robbery in any way, shape, or form or fashion. But there was a period in time back in the '90s when Montreal was winning the Stanley Cup that people went and celebrated a different kind of way. They might have walked with some paraphernalia. There was those kind of things that happened, but there wasn't a lot of people that did it. I mean, I don't know people personally, who came back with a whole different wardrobe. Yes, I do. But those things kind of happen. Like it's just part of the everyday celebration. So my question in those chats was I was curious of who was going to go and partake in the celebrations, not condoning violence or robbery or thievery of any kind
anymore. Yeah, no, not officially for sure, right? Like, no, you're not talking. I will say I explained all, like I'm talking about hockey here in the U.S. with like American friends and whatnot, and they do not get it. And I'm like, you don't understand. You think Vancouver won when they burnt that city? Fucking lost. They burnt that shit. You think like in Montreal, they fucking won. They burnt that shit. This shit is like people lose their mind no matter what. It's crazy because that like the Montreal like government police like they're just like. I don't know. How do you stop this? What are we going to do? Like, what are you going to do? If I'm a shop owner, I'm literally taking all my shit out and I'm putting it all in like storage for a week. I'm taking the hit.
Well, you remember the legendary Sports Fever in Montreal where the night of, because they I still remember this. They beat the Kings in 5. This is how much I used to watch hockey back in the day. They beat the Kings in 5. That 5th game that they won, the clinching win, was in Montreal. And I remember the day of that game, and it was the most popular, sports and hip hop store back in '93 at that time. And they boarded up everything like it was a hurricane coming. They boarded up all the windows because they knew there was like every person in Montreal was coming for that store, and they were so highly priced at the time too. Their sneakers and stuff was like a 20-30% markup as comparison to like all the other places, but a lot of times you couldn't get the shit that was in their stores and other places in Montreal at the time, right? So everybody was coming for that store. Everybody was coming for that place.
Just let it out. Sounds like you want to confess something. Just let it out. Let it out, Calvin.
And listen. I wasn't able to go. I had very strict parents, and my father especially. Rest in peace to my dad. But I remember my father was kind of on the scene being a DJ, so he knows what's going on. And he was like, there ain't no way you're going to this. There's no way you're leaving this house tonight. I'm like, damn it. And I just watched the game. And like I said, and I watched, people that I knew, come home with, like different basketball shoes and different gears and stuff. Like I'm not bitter about it at all. I'm not bitter about it at all,
Remember all the cars that were like flipped and turned because of cars?
The buses.
Cars.
Remember the buses? The buses were flipped over.
Yeah.
Well, you remember?
People were like, I was like, what? When people, it was wild. We were like, that's how we celebrate. Like, you come to the U.S., like they win, Lakers win, and people are like, all right, we're gonna have a parade. In Canada, they're like, let's burn this bitch to the ground. We've won. Fucking crazy.
And I remember St. Catherine was lit on fire. I remember St. Catherine. There was like tens of million dollars of damage.
Literally lit on fire.
Yep. It literally looked like the dance scene in the Matrix. Remember the big dance scene party?
Shit. Oh yeah. But even the same shit of like Vancouver. Like what the fuck? Like you lost. Like I get it, people were mad, but like they lost, and they're just like, fucking gonna burn a fucking city to the ground. That kind of passion, you can't, you can't teach that kind of passion. That kind of passion, just you're born with that shit. You grew up with that passion.
I want to circle back to a couple of things before we go. So I guess the answer
about your Toronto allegiance.
Well, that number one. Yeah, I've been living here a long time, but hey, buddy, listen, look here, stop it.
Hey, respect,
Stop
man.
it.
Respect. How crushed were you when Toronto lost that first round?
Oh, I felt great. I felt great. It's called South Sherrod for a reason, buddy. the lineage is there. It's in the name. Don't disrespect the lineage. No, but no. I think part of it, though, honestly, with the Canadians was I can't lie. And I shouldn't be as bitter as I am because of how things turned out. But, I can't lie. It wasn't this being a Montreal fan wasn't the same for me after what they did with Subban. I basically turned them off for years after that happened.
Yeah.
So I won't lie. So that's a big part of the reason why I'm not going crazy as I would probably normally be in that situation, because I just didn't like how that Subban thing was handled.
I agree, and I was in the same boat for a while, and then I saw my man Subban wearing an American flag bikini, and I was like, oh, I get it. Okay. Mm-hmm. I was like, now I see why he was sent away. Okay. It makes a little more sense.
Yeah, and the comments and the certain things, so it's like, you're just like, damn it.
But then he's like, you're like, at the time I was more racist and stuff. And you're like, of course that's still like a part of something, right? Like it's still in there. But you're also like later, like a few years later, like when you look back on it, you're like, oh, okay. He kind of gets like, all right. Sounds like he's maybe a little like more difficult than I gave credit.
Maybe.
But hey, maybe. But, allegedly. That's the word. Allegedly.
But you know what? Yeah, like if they end up winning the cup, yeah, I'm gonna be happy for them. And maybe my love for the hometown city and the team, maybe it'll be like back on 100% if that happens. But that's part of the reason why like I've been a little muted. But with that said, like I'm like with that said, like you're still happy to see it. Like you want to see them do well, and obviously this is like a miracle ride as far as I know right now. You know what I mean? Like they weren't supposed to be doing this, obviously. So, so you got to love it.
It's a straight up miracle run, man.
Yeah.
It's like the Kings back in 2013.
Yeah.
When they were like the 8th seed. If only Montreal knew how much was on the line with your affinity to them. If they only knew, they'd probably kick it up a notch. You know what I mean?
And I tell you what though, if they do win, I will probably go out and get a Carey Price jersey. Though I won't lie, that guy's a beast. The guy's a beast, man. Carey Price.
I'm just gonna wait till you post a picture, and Julian's gonna hit you with the bandwagon like hard. Jack group.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna be wave surfing on that bandwagon with my Carey Price jersey.
Yeah,
that happens.
Yeah. I'd be like asking for can you have a receipt for when you bought that jersey?
Sure do. It's in my back pocket yesterday.
I bought it at a shop called bandwagon.com.
Mm-hmm. On my lunch break, and the delivery service at my front door was quick too. That's the funny thing, you know. Well, let's see if by the time this pod is recorded, if they're in the final. Hopefully so. It'll be great for the city if that happens, you know. And I think
I'm not counting anything before it happens.
No, for sure.
Even yesterday's game, I was just like, 3 goals ain't enough. Never enough. Yeah.
No,
I think Montreal has fans have a lot of anxiety around
Yeah, and honestly, considering the heavy lockdown and the curfews that they've had this year, like to have this on the flip side and see them celebrating, it's cool. It's actually cool to see. So I'm rooting
for real.
I'm rooting for it to happen. I am rooting for it to happen in all seriousness. But
I love the boys. Let's go.
All right. Can we get out of here now?
All right, man.
Can we leave?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No, but thank you. Seriously. Thank you for hopping on the Ave Podcast, man, and having this conversation. It was needed.
Thank you for having me. Finally, thanks for having me after all these years. I worked at ESPN. I left ESPN, go work in National Public Radio, and I appreciate you finally having me on to talk about sports for the very first time. Makes total sense to me. It's great. I really appreciate it. It's really, yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah. 4.5 years, Calvin.
Thank you for tuning in to the Ave Podcast. Special shout out goes out to Andrew Mambo for coming on the Ave to discuss Naomi Osaka taking a break from the media, and in the process, setting up the possibility of setting new standards in how the media works with athletes dealing with mental health. I also completely resent the shot of where my hometown loyalties lie, but we'll pretend that didn't happen. I'm going to take the rest of the week off. I want you guys to enjoy your holiday week. We'll be back with 2 episodes next week, which also includes the podcast that I had with Wake Forest track and field star, as well as TikTok superstar Aaliyah Hutchins, which will be out at the end of next week. All right, so make sure you check out SouthShareAve.com for all of my past episodes and hit the like button. Please rate, review, and follow, and keep up with all of the latest shows. Thank you so much for tuning in with us. Enjoy the rest of the week. For Andrew Mambo, this is Cal C, and you just tuned into the Ave Podcast on South Shore Ave Radio. All right, until next time, folks, peace. Have a great long weekend.